Who's that knocking on my door? We both wait a moment, until Johnson walks in with the familiar cape and hat in his grasp. Colonel Foxley to see you. The visitor's well received, as I hear Arabella give a light, excited gasp beside me at the announcement. She has just enough time to press her curls a little tighter with her fingers before the colonel strides inside. Good evening, Arabella. Oh, good morning, Arabella, Miss Bennet. Good morning, Colonel, and I hope you'll call me Catherine. Well, that would be a great honor, when I hope you will return. I notice Arabella's smile brighten at the conversation, and she quickly stands and moves towards him. What brings you here today, Ernest? His cheer quickly fades, and he steps closer, his hands outstretched to take hers. I had heard. I try to glance away from the intimate touch, but he seems to remember I'm there and snaps his hands back from Arabella. I'd heard rumor you'd had yet another encounter with the Swindler. My word, news truly does spread fast in this town. How do people know about this? There's nobody around except me and Arabella. Then it's true? It is. She turns to look at me, her concern once again returning. He took Catherine's hat! I should have been there. My duty is to protect. You couldn't have known. You can't be everywhere at once, and I can protect myself. Yeah, I can protect myself, thank you. Well, yes, of course. I did not mean to imply. But as you can see, I'm quite well anyway. No harm done. Still, I shall not be so remiss again. He turns to Arabella, and I notice his hands clenched behind his back to keep them in place. He is trying really, really hard not to grab her hands tightly. So great is his love for her. To the best of my capability, I vow to keep you safe. I shall attend the same functions as you do, escort you back from all of them. I will not let any misfortune fall upon you ever again. His words towards Arabella are so heartfelt, so full of promise and emotion, I feel a pang in my chest. The two stare at each other, silence heavy, the air laced with unspoken words between them. As quietly as I can, I tiptoe from the room, though neither pay me much mind. I close the door behind me and head into the foyer, where I come across Johnson laying a box on the table. Who's that fool, Johnson? He glances at me, one bushy brow arched. It's for you, Miss Bennet. I bet it's from the Swindler. He left me another package. Curiosity forces my feet forwards, and I frown at the small pink box, its sides held together by a fine lace ribbon. Thank you, Johnson. He gives a bow of his head and shuffles away. When he's disappeared around the corner, I gingerly pull at the bow, which unravels. The box falls open. The box sides fall open, and I stare at the sugar-dusted sweets inside, each contained in their own yellow paper case. Oh! Though I'm surprised by the contents, I'm not so shocked to see a note. People call me a thief, but I wonder if it is not you who has become so. You steal all my attentions, Miss Bennet, and I find I'm more than pleased to have them taken by you, even if my other patrons may feel a little left behind. Yours eagerly, the Society Swindler. He knows of my name? Once again, his note finds me awash in a torrent of uncertain emotions. I shake my head and to try to clear it and glance at the box. There's an emblem on top, one I recognize from the same street as the florist. Glancing back towards the drawing room, it seems Arabella and the Colonel are not missing my company, so I tug on the cape and leave the house and make my way towards the center of town. The confectionery shop with the same emblem is a few doors away from the florist, and I head inside. The young man greets me and answers my questions about the parcel without hesitation. Once again, he's got no certain details on who bought the package, but he's asked to give over a parcel should I come asking about it. I take the large circular box from the man and give my thanks before heading out into the street. Scurrying to a shadowed edge of the street, I eagerly tear away the ribbon holding the lid onto the box. I suppose I shouldn't be too shocked to find my hat inside. The article kept pristine by the silk lining of the container. Another note lays atop it, the same words emblazoned on the cream card that had been on my gloves. Curious mind should always be rewarded. Yours eagerly, the Society Swindler. Should I tell Arabella? No, she will just worry herself into hysterics. Or excite herself into them. I shake my head at the thought, and slip the card back into the box. Just as I make to step back out into the street, I almost bump into someone. Oh, excuse me. No, it's my fault. Amesbury, once again, you show up while I'm retrieving an item from the Swindler. Almost like you knew to be waiting for me. Mr. Amesbury? Miss Bennet, what a delightful surprise. He tips his hat to me, a glimmer in his eyes as his smile widens. How strange to have happened upon you, here once again. Indeed, though I find it even more odd to find you... Indeed, though I find it even more odd to have found you seeming to have purchased a hat from a confectioner's. His gaze passes to the shop behind me, then to the package I hold. How intuitive of you to know it's a hat in a box when it could possibly be a cake. For once I seem to have caught him off guard, and I tilt my head a little as he stumbles to reply, Ooh! Ooh! Guilty! How did you know it was a hat? My servants purchased some lovely goods from that confectioner's, and I simply know they do not sell cakes in that sort of packaging. I examine him for a moment longer, unsure of what to make of his sudden uncertainty. He speaks quickly to break the quiet. Is he hiding something? Is he hiding the fact that he's the swindler? I was actually just on my way to call on you, in fact, so it's very lucky I've come upon you here. Shall we? That would be lovely. I take his offered arm and fall into the familiar place beside him, my previous thoughts washed away by his closeness. Oh, but its handsomeness distracts me. I can't even think of such a scene. We pass through the park, sticking to the quieter areas. I have been thinking more about the gathering I promised Lady Ashbourne I would host in a few weeks. Is the planning progressing well? No, in fact, it seems I have little ability at planning such things. That was the purpose of my calling upon you today. Oh? I'd hoped to enlist you as an advisor of sorts, to help me put it all together. I'm sure your staff are more than capable, but they are not you. I swallow hard at his heavy words, his gaze turning soft. Oh, I would be delighted. Nothing would make me happier. I truly wish for nothing more than to make you happy, Miss Bennet. You tease me again. I assure you I do not tease in this. I hold his gaze for a moment longer, unsure what to say, or if I even can speak under such close attention. He clears his throat to break the heated moment, and we stare back at the path. Then I shall call on you tomorrow morning, and we can begin preparations at my house. Alone? Far from it, unfortunately. My father's given me the service of a chaperone. I'm sure Mrs. Peakes will be overjoyed to be put to some use, rather than having to listen to more of Pierce's exultations over society's company. I give a laugh, and he pulls me a little closer, his hand finding mine tucked into his arm. I'm now looking most forward to the coming weeks. The next day, Mr. Amesbury arrives promptly with a carriage in tow, and we head straight to his house. It's a grand place with rich furnishings and open rooms. He spends most of the first day acquainting me with his staff and with the house, and I'm far too nervous to do much else than look about. Oh my, he's introducing me to the house! The few days after that, I continue to try to make myself at home in its grand lodgings, still a little uneasy at having the run of someone else's house. Mr. Montfort is polite, although seems rather distracted and not too aware of my presence, but it matters little, as I find myself drawn to Mr. Amesbury's company whenever possible. It isn't until the end of the next week that I feel confident enough in the house to help begin preparing properly.